calling today's meeting to order. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Has everybody had a chance to review the agenda? Yeah. Can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Now let's move to the board calendar.
no new updates on the calendar at this point.
All right, thank you. And committee updates.
Any updates? So we're going to, both Sandy and Pam tonight, just give a
Sure. So one of the committees is the Finance Advisory Committee. We've met twice already this year. We've had an August and a September meeting. So one of the things that the committee does every month is that they review the monthly financial report. They look at the actual expenditures compared to the budget. They look at actual receipts compared to the revenue budget. They've also been looking at options for our Proposition S bond issue and different ways we can split out those bond issues and how we want to issue those bonds. Do we want to do one series? Do we want to do two or maybe more? So those are the things that they're looking at right now with that. They also reviewed the tax rate. So we went through this entire tax rate presentation that was presented at the tax rate hearing. So they all were able to look at that. I think they were very pleased with the tax rate and the revenue that it's generating. And our board member rep is Tara Shear. And then on the Building Advisory Committee, they have also met 2 meetings. And I should add, too, that's new this year. Previously, they didn't meet till September, but when they redid their bylaws and the handbook, they decided they wanted to start meeting in August. So that committee's also had 2 meetings. So one of the major things they've been working on, the Building Advisory's been working on a board policy that encourages firms such as minority-owned and women-owned businesses to bid on our construction projects. They also tour our facilities, review all of our facility needs, and of course give recommendations too for any facility needs that they see. They're also monitoring or will be monitoring all of our Proposition S projects. When we met this last meeting, we actually met at Moss Field so they could get an understanding of what that project's going to look like. And then Alan Todd is our board representative for that committee.
Good evening, everyone. So the committee that I'm going to present on tonight is our Issues Committee. And we only met once so far this year. This committee has a building representative from each school. Hickson High School has 2. And we discuss any district-wide or systemic concerns that come up from teachers. So the committee meets, we discuss, we problem solve, and we initiate change. So this past meeting, September 14th, was our very first meeting. We met via Zoom. Our next 2 to 3 meetings will be in person, but we met and we discussed COVID leave days as well as the externship process and then the WGNEA memo that was shared last school year. So we send out a newsletter after each meeting, and I'm drafting that now to send to the issues reps so they can send it to their schools. And then we will meet again next month. We have 2 board members who are a part of that committee, and that's David Addison and Keita Quinn.
Thank you both.
My apologies, I just turned on my mic.
I just wanted to offer the chance of board members, if you wanted to say anything about the board committee on which you serve.
I could just say briefly. Oh,
Can we turn the air down? It's kind of hard for. It's hard to hear. Yeah,
I don't have a lot to add, but from the Building Advisory Committee, perspective, I just wanted to reiterate, we've talked about it a lot, after touring Moss Field and seeing everything that they have to do, just sort of the amount of moving parts that's going to go into not only that construction project, but all of them that's happening with Prop S is just tremendous. So I just want to thank Pam and Rob and Jason for all their work, sort of juggling all those balls, because the number of projects that are going to be going on at the same time that they have to keep track of is a lot. I have full confidence that they will do that and continue to do that well, but it's a lot. The other thing, just to say, I really like this addition to the agenda, having these committee reports. And I don't know if we talked about it or did it before, but I'd love, maybe not every meeting, but occasionally extending the opportunity for the chairs to come talk to us as well. I think that would be a good opportunity for them to engage with the board as well.
Thanks, Alan. Anyone else?
Christine, I'll just add that I really appreciate listening to all the staff and the issues committee. They're really very considerate of all the buildings and one another. So I really just appreciate how they care for one another, and they notice that there's differences from building to building and things like that. So I look forward to the issues committee and just wanted to know that they're heard.
Thanks, Keita. All right. Let's move on now to reports from the superintendent and staff. Dr. Simpson?
Student advisor to the board. We had made the decision to solicit student advisors to the board in the fall, with the hope that we might, at the beginning of the year instead of the end of the year, draw more students to apply for the position. And we didn't. It had the opposite effect. I don't know if it was the timing or other things, but we did have 3 students apply for this role. Students have to submit a 1 to 2 page essay to myself, outlining their interest as well as the skills and other that they would bring to the board as a representative of district students. We had some amazing, all 3 of them were fantastic. And then we interview those students, and this year it was Dr. Adams and Mr. Kirksey and I interviewed them. And after much deliberation, we did land on 2 students. Since I have yet to dialogue with one, I didn't want to announce those names tonight, but I will communicate that with you soon. And then the students do plan on being here at the next board meeting in that advisory role. So they're very, very excited. Yeah. We do, just as an FYI, also we seek student representatives for a number of our district committees. So we've solicited, we'd love a bunch to have us on strategic planning monitoring, finance advisory, building advisory, a lot of our different groups. And so we send out stuff, but then we also work with Mickey Erb, who kind of coordinates that at the high school to try and get more students involved. You'll remember as part of the strategic planning, some of the students that were present last year that contributed a lot to those conversations and our work. So that's it there.
Out of curiosity, how many students applied the year before?
I would say, I don't remember exactly. We've had, in recent history, we've had 9, 11 students. So again, I don't know if it's timing. I don't know if it's, again, the weight of which a lot of people are, you know what I'm saying, just changes in people as a result of the past few years. And so we'll look to find out the reason behind that, but we don't know.
And it's all juniors and all seniors that can, but I guess
the students that are juniors, the advisors are juniors.
They're all juniors.
So in the past, we would ask them to apply in May and thought that maybe at the end of the year, that was kind of a frantic time. And so we waited until the start of the year when they were settled and interviewing during the day, as opposed to like after a finals day. And again, we just didn't get the number of students. So.
Does that get how does it announced or how is it promoted? Does it get?
So we send it directly to students. and then in their emails, and then we communicate it. They communicate it on the announcements at school and on the boards around the school. Yeah.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Because they may not read email.
Yeah.
You could Snapchat it, that'd be great.
Yeah, that's true. Do a video next year, yeah. That's it.
Okay. Superintendent update.
Just a real quick update, and then entertain any questions you might have, but kind of like we said at the last meeting, my colleagues and I continue to feel a lot of really good energy around the school district. It's a market change from the past few years, and it's not just feeling it ourselves, but hearing teachers, having teachers and staff express that to us. And so it's just been really good. I wanted to just share that. And then also just lift up both Dr. Williamson, Ms. Clark Scott, and everybody who also contributed to the family barbecue. Again, that was something that we tried to do things a little bit differently, push it back a little bit, learn from it. There were so many different groups that came to be a part of that, interactive experiences for children that hadn't been present before. Thanks for those of you who came and were able to support and help out and get to interact with a lot of families and staff. That was great. And then COVID, just an update on COVID. Our district continues to navigate everything, I think, very thoughtfully, continuing to follow the guidance of authorities with that. We've seen, in terms of data, we've seen more COVID cases this fall than we did last fall or the fall before. We know that masks are an effective mitigation strategy. As far as serious illness, we're certainly not seeing that. We're certainly seeing a lot fewer COVID cases than we were last winter. When that happened, we're seeing marked reduction from that. We have a number of our schools who haven't had COVID cases for a substantial period of time, over a week. And then we have some at the high school and the middle schools where we're seeing a little bit more, especially at the high school. So we are continuing to offer vaccinations, both in Webster and then in Clayton. And Clayton is on Tuesday, Webster is on Wednesday, and that's 9 to 11. We do have I think it's called the bivalent vaccine. That's the one that they're saying is the most effective, which hits on a lot of the variants as opposed to some of the earlier booster shots for anybody over the age of 12. I talked to the nurses and they are not opposed. We had heard from one of the authorities, one of the experts we've talked to, who said in their study of, an infectious disease, they always look to see what's happening in the southern hemisphere as kind of a precursor or predictor of what's going to happen here. And she said they're talking about a flunami. And we approached the nurses who are administering them are certainly open to it. So all of our staff in their buildings have the opportunity to be vaccinated. And we're hopeful that maybe that our clinics can expand to not just COVID, but also flu. So we should figure that out soon.
Say the hours for that again.
9 to 11 on Wednesday in Webster and on Tuesday in Clayton at their high school. And I shared something with Derek today, and I don't know if it's up yet, but we're also going to kind of push that out again to all of our families and put it on social media.
And those are still at central office?
Yes.
And is testing available as well?
Yes.
Still? Okay.
Yeah, testing remains available.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
Yep. And that's all I really had. Just a brief update.
Thanks, John. Thanks to our nurses, and thanks to our Kirkwood Griller at the cookout.
That's right.
Yeah, appreciated that. Any comments or other questions? Okay, so Pam, we'll move to you and the setting of the 2022-23 district tax rate.
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to do an abbreviated version of the presentation that was done at the tax rate hearing earlier this evening. So if anyone wants all of the details that I went over, you can go to that recording and see that presentation. But just to hit some of the high points and the items that mainly affect our tax rate, you can see our assessed valuation there went up from last year when the tax rate calculation was done by $17 million, or a 1.6% increase. In those numbers, we have new construction numbers. Residential new construction was about $2 million. We did not have any commercial new construction this year, but personal property had $26.6 million in what they could call new construction. In the personal property category, that is any increase in personal property is considered new construction. And these new construction totals are not subject to the Hancock Amendment, where we're limited on their increase. We always get the increase in revenue from new construction. And here is a breakdown from those numbers from last year. So as you can see, our assessed valuation as a whole went up. Personal property went up considerable amount, but residential and commercial both went down from the assessed valuation that was used last year in the tax rate calculation. We are eligible to do a recoupment this year, and the recoupment was based on last year when we calculated the tax rate. We used the numbers we received from the assessor's office for assessed valuation. Those numbers then, before they sent the bills out to all of the residents in the community, they lowered the residential and the commercial totals went down quite a bit. And you can see them, the difference there in the original assessed valuation was used in the tax rate calculation, but when they sent the billings out, these amounts were lowered. So they settled more protest with our community members before they sent the bills out. So due to that, we lost revenue, $159,000 in residential and almost $62,000 in commercial, for a total of $721,000. So that recoupment rate ends up being 1.98 cents for residential and 50.20 cents for commercial. The recommendation is that we place those recoupment funds in the capital projects fund, since they are one-time funds. So we put them in the capital projects fund. That's what we did last year too with those funds. And this year, as you know, we're getting ready to bid out the project in the next few months for the new little theater. And there will probably be some district money that has to go towards this project, and that would be a perfect use for these funds. And here is the total rate. If we look at residential, the regular rate for residential is 3.62.91 cents. We add on the 1.98 cents for the recoupment, the debt service rate of 56.99 for that total of 421.88. Commercial is 4.5275. The recoupment for commercial is 50.20 cents, and then the debt service rate of 56.99 for a total $5.59.94 cents. Personal property is $5.43.89 cents. There's no recoupment there. We add on the debt service of $56.99 for a total of $6.88 cents. And as you can see here, the change from last year, residential is going down just under 1 penny. Commercial is going up 69.28 cents, and that's in this last column. The majority of that 50 cents is at the one-time recoupment rate, and personal property rate is staying the same. So those are your proposed total rates, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I'll ask one. So I was a little surprised to see the decrease in assessed valuation for residential and commercial, and then in particular see what looks to me like a pretty dramatic growth in personal property assessed valuation. I didn't know if you had any explanation for both of those things, in particular as we think about long-term planning and sort of how it might affect rates moving forward as well. I'd just love to hear what you know about that.
Yeah, so the residential and commercial went down because of those protests from the community members. Personal property went up mainly due to the fact of the used vehicles being worth more now. The county has said that was the reason here. I reached out to other CFOs in the area. They also saw an increase very similar to ours. When I sent the rate to the state auditor's office for a math calculation, they also said that they are seeing a 20 to 30% increase in personal property throughout the state. And then I think, so what is going to, we don't know for sure what's going to happen in the future. We don't have a crystal ball, but that recoupment is going to just help us moving forward. We were able to raise the rate this year, and that will just continue to move forward because our baseline is now increased from last year.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion.
I'll do this one, it's long.
Thank you.
I move that the 2022 operating levy be set at a maximum blended rate. Is it 2022 or 2023?
22-23.
So the 2022-2023 operating levy be set at a maximum blended rate of 3.9568 plus a blended recoupment rate of 0.0686, which will be distributed per fund as follows. Incidental fund 2.1043, teachers fund 1.79, capital projects fund 0.0625 plus a blended recoupment rate of 0.0686. The 2022 debt service levy be set at 0.5699 for a total blended maximum operating rate plus the debt service rate of 4.5953. The current maximum rate will be set by category as follows. Residential 3.6291 plus a recoupment rate of 0.0198, agricultural at 0, commercial 4.5275 plus a recoupment rate of 0.5020, personal property 5.4389 plus the debt service rate of 0.5699, which is added to each category.
Do I have a second? Thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The motion passes. Thanks, Pam. All right, now moving to construction management recommendation.
Yes, thank you. So the district earlier this year issued I have to talk a little bit louder because of the rain, issued a request for qualifications for construction management firms. We're looking at these firms to assist us in the Prop S project since there will be so many different projects associated with Prop S. On May 9th, the district received proposals from 4 different companies. We received one from KAI Enterprises, from Avison Young, from Kwame, and from Navigate Building Solutions. The submissions were evaluated by a committee of district administrators. We then asked the 4 firms to come in and give a presentation, which they did. After going through that process, it was determined to recommend Avison Young as the construction management firm for the district. But their work is going to be associated with the projects right now. Just in looking at the budgets that we have, give us any recommendations if they think those budgets are on track or if they need to be amended, and to also help us to develop a schedule for the projects because they are in that line of work and they know what is the lead time right now for supplies and equipment. So those are the processes that we're asking them to help us with right now. It may be in the future we come back to you, the board, and ask permission for them to do some other services for us, but right now we're just looking at those things. So hiring a construction management firm is a little bit different for the Webster Grove School District. So Jason Miller is going to join us now and just talk about our rationale in coming to this decision.
Good evening. So part of the reason that we are deciding to use a construction management firm for this bond issue is this is a larger bond issue than has happened in the district in recent past. Another big difference with this bond is it's very big into maintenance of all of our facilities. So it's not just a single addition at Hickson a single elevator at a few other buildings, it will be spread out throughout the district. There's a good chance we could have multiple contractors working on multiple projects at all of our buildings at one time, which just becomes way too much for us to lay on Rob Stuber, who's a fantastic construction project manager, but he's still only one person and he does not have a support staff to support him. So this is a way that we can use the management services, pardon me, to help out with managing the day-to-day, some of the administration as far as paperwork, things of that nature, especially when we get into summer months. As you know, we really push hard in summer for a lot of the work to get done. So that is when we could have a high number of meetings that would overlap, things of that nature. You get into your change orders, especially with the maintenance type projects that we're going to have. There'll be some unknowns as we dig into these buildings. So to be able to keep us moving forward, not get behind schedule, and to maintain accountability for the community as far as where the dollars are being spent, we thought it was in the best interest of the district to utilize these services.
Any questions?
Yeah, so thanks for the explanation. Here, I'll do this. Thanks for the explanation. So just to be clear, so Rob's going to be heavily involved with this, but it's just too much for one person since he doesn't have a support staff. It's almost like he's going to be working kind of in tandem with this.
He will oversee the construction management company. They'll report to him. But basically the idea is instead of hiring on staff or something of that nature, we instead pay a firm to do that. And once we've gone through the projects, we no longer need their services and we're no longer paying a salary or anything like that to an employee.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. That's just what I wanted to sort of add, Alex. I think we had talked at a previous meeting, you guys had talked about potentially maybe adding staff to support Rob, and this looks like it's a much cheaper option and better use of funds. So I support that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, there is a motion to be made here.
I'll motion to approve Avis & Young as the construction manager owner's agent for the scope of work described for a fee of $4,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Dr. Simpson and Dr. Adams, strategic planning update.
All right, let me load up the presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening again. Just wanted to give you an update on the strategic planning process. As you know, as folks who participated, we held a meeting a little over a week ago for the strategic planning committee group that's been involved since last October. It's a very diverse group of district community members that has representation from students, staff, families, community. We intentionally invited people who didn't have children, not just people who were always supportive of our decisions, people who push back against it, believing that having a diverse body in the room is only going to enrich the outcome and whatever we're talking about. And so we got some feedback from a lot of good feedback from that last meeting. We brought draft goals, objectives, and metrics to the group. Some of that feedback included excitement for a student-centered approach that was respectful of the whole child, that academics are important, so is the social-emotional well-being of our children as well as our adults, that it was rich in content, and that it was narrowly focused, unlike previous plans, able to narrow it a little bit. There was also opportunities for people to share things that they wondered about or necessary for clarity. Some of those wonderings were just on some of the specifics. How would these objectives that could, some of which could have been applied this year, 5 years, 7 years ago, how are these objectives themselves going to move the district forward? And I'll get to that in a second. And there was questions on just kind of alignment because the group wasn't at that point, wasn't privy to the work that was going to be done on those objectives. So they were just considering kind of those few things. And then there was question and clarity for, are these objectives, are the metrics that are being presented, many of which were standardized or some that have been used before, are those kind of the right metrics to still use today? So following Jason and I processing that ourselves, following discussion with board leadership, and Tara was the extra representative on that committee, we made the decision to delay the board's approval of the goals, objectives, and metrics until you see that as part of the whole package that's coming together with the strategies, many of which will be have metrics of their own. The board had expressed last year, possibly board leadership urgency with completion of the plan, and our approach is still going to have us completing at the same time, which is this December. So tonight we're going to just share a little bit about where the direction that we're moving and start off with a little bit of a recap of our process. So Dr. Adams, go ahead and kick us off.
Well, good evening to all of you. Can you hear me okay? It's kind of, sort of.
Yell a little bit.
Okay, I'll do my best. If I start to get into the presentation and fade off, please let me know. So we think it's important to review the entire process and bring us back to where this all began, which started last, I believe, November. We brought the entire committee together, the group that Dr. Simpson was talking about earlier, representation from staff, students, community members, etc. Around 50 members came together on a Saturday with an organization known as Filament. And part of that exercise was to really push and challenge our thinking around what would it look like if the world as we know it in terms of our education experience were to be disrupted. What would it look like if we had a disruptive competitor or a disruptive external action that would be happening, like a law that might impact the work that we're doing, or a pandemic, or something along those lines? How would we respond? We also looked at what would it look like if we had a disruptive technology that came in and totally turned the way that we educate children on its head. And so as part of that exercise, it really was to challenge us to think beyond the status quo, to think about how would we respond in that situation, and as a system, are we prepared to respond in that situation? So as we talk about planning for the future, there are always have-tos, especially with a public school district. There are always going to be things that we have to do. But we need to also think beyond those have-tos, begin to think creatively, begin to think how we provide that overall experience for our students. So that first meeting really was designed to push our thinking in that direction. We then moved into forming a small group, which I believe Keita and Alex were a part of, a small working group where we developed our purpose, our principles, and our profile of a graduate. And that was a series of, I believe, 3 or 4 different meetings where, again, with another smaller group of community members, teachers, etc., and went through that process of developing the purpose, principles, and profile, and then brought that back to the larger group for feedback, and then shared that ultimately in the spring with the board. We are now at a point where if you look at the visual that's up there, that April to December 2022 area where we are looking at our goals, which will give you a preview of what our thinking is around that at this point. We're also talking about our objectives and our measurements, which Dr. Simpson alluded to, that we started that conversation with the larger group last week, and then we'll eventually move to the point where we're looking at those concrete, specific strategies that will go about helping us to achieve our overall big picture. So as we move into talking about some of these results and some of the actual pieces of the work, I wanted to just quickly go over the timeline with everyone to remind everyone how this overall process is leading us to this point where we are right now.
And just again, is that providing you with a quick summary will be in more detail when the actual plan is presented, but part of knowing where you want to go and thinking futuristically is also knowing what your current reality is. And so looking at what are we being told by students, staff, community, and that isn't often verbally expressed or coming in a survey, but it is that. And then what are our some of our current practice, external pressures, and then our opportunities. So again, the board gets presentation on the student experience and outcomes all the time. So we know what we do well, and we know what our strengths and weaknesses are in terms of academics. We know that we serve a lot of our kids really well, and we don't serve some of our kids as well as we should. We present that data regularly, and we continue to do what we can to address those issues. The health and well-being, the social emotional well-being, the mental health of our children has been something that we've seen issues on the rise well before COVID, but certainly accentuated multiple times as a result of COVID, impacting some children more than others. We see discipline data, we see programmatic data, we see gains that we've made in certain areas in terms of adding additional courses. But sometimes we also see in those same types of courses, we don't see the representation that we should from our student body. There's barriers that we continue to work on, and I think have made a lot of gains with those areas, but we still have a lot of work. Staff, we've got an incredibly talented staff. They show us that all the time. It's a very tough job. I always say that teaching is an incredibly difficult job, that when you have all these children from all these backgrounds with all this different knowledge, ways you learn, your interests are all different, to be a great teacher is really hard. And I think we have a lot of really great teachers. It's been a on every single school district. We feel it a lot because of the burden our taxpayers have on funding the Webster Groves School District. An external pressure that is come and gone, but we certainly still feel, is the Blankenship decision that impacted many taxing jurisdictions across the state. Webster, you as a board know the impact there. Another external pressure that is not new, again, is the technology, including the social emotional piece of social media. We are responding over and over again to social media. And so that's a pressure that's not going to go away. It's probably only going to intensify. And we certainly have a lot of worries, especially on the impact for our children above all else. The legislative climate, not just within our state, but beyond that, is also something that's impactful to all of us. When you start talking about other school models, are our schools going to lose funding? What's going to happen with local control? Are they going to look to make decisions on curriculum far away from where we are and the way things have always been done? That's something we're all mindful of, but again, those are pressures that are forced on people down to the classroom level, which is difficult. So considering all of that, and still thinking through what's our desired future, we could design that, we could explain exactly what that looks like, but the bottom line is that's really looking at that profile of a graduate, which is our desired state for our children to be thriving, to in their present learn in developmentally appropriate ways the skills, the attributes, the habits of mind.
Dr. Simpson, we've lost internet, so I don't know if you want to pause for a minute. We're not recording, or if you want to keep going.
Oh.
It should be back up shortly, Bill, thanks.
Okay.
A few minutes.
Hey, Dave. David? Yeah. We just paused. We apparently lost the internet. So I'll call you or text you when we're back on. We're gonna wait a few minutes and then we're probably gonna just go, I would think. Yeah. So we just paused the meeting. Yeah. It's rain. Rain doesn't normally knock out the internet, but but we've lost it.
It's a lot of rain.
It's a lot of rain, though. Yeah, it does. Somebody wondered if our cars were still outside. So, yeah. So I'll call you when we're back on. Just one. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. Bye. What's that? Well, I'm like, okay, why is Christine coming over here? But I'm just gonna keep going. That's right. That's right. Technology. What's that? It is frustrating.
Mine hasn't worked yet. Although it might now. Maybe not.
I don't know what he's saying about disruptive technology.
Way to build that into the presentation.
As I was saying.
Locally now, so we can resume, and he's trying to get the network connection out, the internet's down right now. So we are recording, so we'll be able to post the meeting online.
So our outgoing internet access to the district is down, but we are recording currently, so we will combine the recording with what we have on. So keep going.
Okay, so we're online now?
No, we're not online, but we're going to record.
But
We're recording.
What you're saying currently, right?
Okay, okay.
To be posted.
I'll trim that part off.
Well, let me, I was gonna call David.
Oh, put him back on speaker.
Yeah. Hey, David. So we can't get the internet, but we're gonna record and then post. Do you want me to put you on speakerphone? Or not? We can't log back onto Zoom. Not much. This is the last presentation. We're gonna have a quick executive. I can fill you in on that later if you want. Okay. Thanks, bye. All right. David has decided to drop out. Fill him in later. Okay, desired future, but profile of a graduate outlines those, again, like I shared with you, I believe. And again, wanting all of our children, all of our staff members to thrive as learners and human beings moving forward. The goals and focus areas, teaching and learning, everything within the classroom, the wellness of the children and the staff, and college and career pathways. Schools have been for some time very different than the schools I know I went to, where it was all about just learning content. It's a lot of today is about, again, how are we teaching, helping children learn about themselves, that whole process of self-discovery, and then creating opportunities and experiences now, not beyond, to explore some of those. And we've got a good start on that, but we have a lot of exciting things in the hopper that we're looking to really take to the next level. The objectives, again, some of them in my point, so the objectives that we had laid out were one, again, academic excellence. We know that, again, comparatively, when you're comparing results locally around the state, we do well on assessments, but we know that there's a lot of room for improvement. And so again, that's always going to be a focus of what we do. But again, the growth and the stretching beyond is going to come through in the strategies that we're doing as it relates to that. The equitable outcomes, access, and opportunities, again, is ensuring our children have what they need to be successful within our school system. That will continue to be important work that will, again, show up in academic excellence, but we have to be intentional in that work. Students that creating learning experience that are both connected to students, that's the personal piece, and then individualized is how they can each access it. So we might each have a care or an interest in nature, let's say, but maybe we're reading at different levels, or I have less science than somebody. So how do we access that care and that love of nature, but then individualize the learning experiences so that the kids can each thrive? Again, looking at, like I said, the self-discovery, What opportunities do we have? What opportunities do we need to present? How do we communicate that? How do we develop plans much earlier than we do for children to explore that? How can we better provide students with guidance, not just opportunities that are available, but that we're ensuring they're accessing them? Communication is big. How are we communicating and partnering with families and outsourced resources and all that we do? That's come up. Communication is so big in all that we do, but how are we really partnering with families in support of their children's now and where they end up moving towards? Doing what we can to ensure kids feel that sense, and staff, the sense of belonging and connection, that staff and students are physically, emotionally, and socially well and continuing to be such. And then everything regarding that infrastructure has got to be solid and in place. And we know that, and that's got to be a priority when we talk about our finances, our operations, that our people. And again, I highlighted some of those very real challenges that exist now, or that seemingly will always exist as long as we're funded how we are. But how strategically are we looking to do the best that we can moving forward? And so then our next steps are to finalize the development of this entire plan that, again, lays out these goals, objectives, and objective statements, has measurements, and then again, those strategies, which is strategies are really going to be the stories on where we're going and what we're going to be doing to achieve the results that we want for our children especially. And then how are we, again, going to make this strategic plan the center of all of our work? How are we going to ensure that it's understood by our community, that our community is excited about it? And that's not just like one video. That's how it's just regularly a part of our work. How we're referencing at this table, how we're referencing it in communications, and the such, trying to get people excited. And then monitor and review plan. How are we going to do that internally? How are we going to do that with a committee? We talked to the strategic planning committee that we're going to have a group that continues to come regularly to get updates on the strategy, on the metrics, on the outcomes. And then what design do we use here at the board table for continuing to bring that back and review the plan? We'll develop all of that, not just alone, but with others that need to be at the table for those development, and then come back to you on December 8th with the big presentation of the entire plan, and then initiate implementation of that plan in January of 2023, which had been our plan for a while. So it's a lot. I know I spoke a lot, but any questions for Dr. Adams? Dr. Adams, anything you want to add?
No, I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have or provide clarity around what we've shared.
I'm just wondering, will there be an opportunity for board input and engagement on what you're going to present to us in December, on December 8th, or will that be our first opportunity to engage with those metrics and strategies to provide input?
You know, we could, I mean, it's your call. It's the board's call. So if we wanted to do something, it's not a bad idea, Alan, where we've done with like the bond issue project, where we have like one initial session where you get to see it all, then you get to offer any kind of feedback or anything and come back. We're fine. That would be great.
I think that might be helpful just in terms of, in particular, if the expectation is that we vote on that plan, and then that plan be implemented starting in January. I think having some opportunities for us to provide input and changes beforehand would probably be helpful instead of trying to wordsmith a bunch of amendments in December, if we have such.
Now it might again, it might be necessary to, there's still like, we've got plans and direction on some of these items, but some are still development, got to bring other people. So I don't know if, I can't promise right now that at the meeting, first meeting, that one meeting in November, that we'll be ready to share. So if the board's okay with, maybe an initial in December and come back in January, but I could work with Christine and Joe on whatever that looks like. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, however that works best, I think, for everyone. I don't want to create a bunch of extra work, but even if it requires a quick meeting where it's presented to us or whatever. Any way we can get it and digest it ahead of time,
Yeah.
I think would be helpful.
Yeah, and that's no extra work to us. And if it was, it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with Alan. I think it would be helpful to be able to see it in
Yeah.
advance.
Yeah.
Will there be any additional strategic planning committee meetings between now and December?
Maybe to share strategy if we get there. You know, we're the strategy, the focus of the strategy is who are the people who are actually going to be, you know, doing that work.
Right.
But we could certainly, you know, again, put in another meeting once we get a little bit further along to get people's response
Okay,
to it.
I wasn't sure. I didn't see anything on the calendar.
Yeah,
so I
there's
didn't
not
know
on the
if there-
calendar.
Okay.
Again, we don't personally feel, you know, again, we've got a lot that's happening. We don't feel as bound by the January, like or the December deadline. We want to get it done soon, but we would be, yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea either.
Thanks.
Any comments, Leah?
Just a question, just for clarification purposes. I'm assuming there's going to, who are the people working? I'm assuming there's teachers involved, obviously you guys.
Yeah.
Who else will be working?
Different relevant groups, yeah, to all the different items. Again, there are some things that are already in place, like our CLT work is a big part of our academic success, but there are going to be some strategies that, whether it's the professional development committee issues, you know, different groups that will be more relevant, the equity and action group, and we look at what, you know, what barriers, you know, I mean, there's so many, you know, what are the focus areas? And so then there'll be some that come, you know, with experiential learning or this college and career, start talking about the, you know, the counseling group. We start talking about, like with Kara CB and the Chelsea Center with Jenny and Carrie there, like, so just based on some of those focus areas. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Dr. Simpson.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dr. Adams. All right, so now we're moving on to public comment, and first written public comment. I just want to mention that we should be looking in board docs for public comment. We don't have any this week, but for anyone choosing to send a public comment rather than provide one in person, please email it directly to Sherry Myers at Myers, M-E-Y-E-R-S, .Sherry, S-H-A-R-I, at wgmail.org by noon of the meeting date to be included in the agenda. You may also mail a letter via the U.S. Post Office with your public comment to Webster Grove School District, 400 East Lockwood Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri, 63119. Attention, Sherry Myers, as spelled previously. And please include your name, your address, and your school district, as we do with in-person public comments. And with that, we'll move to in-person public comments. Welcome to the Board of Education Workshop Meeting. The school board welcomes questions, ideas, and comments from persons in attendance. Members of the audience may comment during the public comment portion of this meeting, which is now, when recognized by the board president or vice president. We ask that comments be limited to 3 minutes in order to complete the agenda within a reasonable time. We also ask that comments begin by providing your name, address, and school district in which you reside. And do we have any public comments this evening? Okay, so let's move on to the consent agenda. And I'm looking for a motion here.
I will motion to approve consent agenda items 5.01, 5.02, 5.03, 5.04, 5.05.
Second.
Who was second?
Keita.
Keita, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
No.
Thanks, that was a good question, Sherry. And that passes. And now, the executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel. Can I see a motion here? Here, a motion here.
Make a motion to recess into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel.
Second.
Thank you.
Yes.
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 Thank you.
All right. All right. Your call. It's the board's call. So if we wanted to do something, it's not a bad idea, Alan, where we've done with like the bond issue project, where we have like one initial session where you get to see it all, then you get to offer any kind of feedback or anything and come back. We're fine. That would be great.
I think that might be helpful just in terms of, in particular, if the expectation is that we vote on that plan.
Yeah.
And then that plan be implemented starting in January. I think having some opportunities for us to provide input and changes beforehand would probably be helpful instead of trying to wordsmith a bunch of amendments in December, if we have such.
Now it might, again, it might be necessary to, there's still we've got plans and direction on some of these items, but some are still in development, got to bring other people. So I don't know if, I can't promise right now that at the meeting, first meeting, that one meeting in November, that we'll be ready to share. So if the board's okay with, maybe an initial in December and come back in January, but I could work with Christine and Joe on whatever that looks like. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, however that works best, I think, for everyone. I don't want to create a bunch of extra work, but even if it requires a quick meeting where it's presented to us or whatever, any way we can get it and digest it ahead of time, I think would be helpful.
Yeah, and that's no extra work to us. And if it was, it is. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with Alan. I think it would be helpful to be able to see it in advance.
Yeah.
Will there be any additional strategic planning committee meetings between now and December?
Maybe to share strategy if we get there. We're the strategy, the focus of the strategy is who are the people who are actually going to be, doing that work.
Right.
But we could certainly, again, put in another meeting once we get a little bit further along to get people's response to it.
I wasn't sure. I didn't see anything on the calendar.
Yeah,
so I
there's
didn't
not
know
on the
if there-
calendar.
Okay.
Again, we don't personally feel, again, we've got a lot that's happening. We don't feel as bound by the January, or the December deadline. We want to get it done soon, but we would be, I don't think that's a bad idea either.
Okay. Thanks.
Any comments? Yeah.
Just a question, just for clarification purposes. I'm assuming who are the people working? I'm assuming there's teachers involved, obviously you guys.
Yeah.
Who else will be working?
Different relevant groups, to all the different items. Again, there are some things that are already in place, like our CLT work is a big part of our academic success, but there are going to be some strategies that, whether it's the professional development committee issues, different groups that will be more relevant, the equity and action group, and we look at what barriers, there's so many, what are the focus areas? And so then there'll be some that come, with experiential learning or this college and career, start talking about the counseling group. We start talking about with Kara Seeby and the Chelsea Center with Jenny and Carrie there, so just based on some of those focus areas. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Dr. Simpson.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dr. Adams. All right, so now we're moving on to public comment, and first written public comment. I just want to mention that we should be looking in board docs for public comment. We don't have any this week, but for anyone choosing to send a public comment rather than provide one in person, please email it directly to Sherry Myers at Myers, MEYERS, .Sherry, SHARI, @WGmail.org by noon of the meeting date to be included in the agenda. You may also mail a letter via the U.S. Post Office with your public comment to Webster Grove School District, 400 East Lockwood Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri, 63119. Attention, Sherry Myers, as spelled previously. And please include your name, your address, and your school district, as we do with in-person public comments. And with that, we'll move to in-person public comments. Welcome to the Board of Education Workshop Meeting. The school board welcomes questions, ideas, and comments from persons in attendance. Members of the audience may comment during the public comment portion of this meeting, which is now, when recognized by the board president or vice president. We ask that comments be limited to 3 minutes in order to complete the agenda within a reasonable time. We also ask that comments begin by providing your name, address, and school district in which you reside. And do we have any public comments this evening? Okay, so let's move on to the consent agenda. And I'm looking for a motion here.
I will motion to approve consent agenda items 5.01, 5.02, 5.03, 5.04, 5.05.
Second.
Who was second?
Keita.
Keita, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
No.
Thanks, that was a good question, Chair. And that passes. And now, the executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel. Can I see a motion here? Hear a motion here?
Make a motion to recess into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel.
Second.
Thank you.
Yes.
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 Okay.
Thank you.
All right.